Craft beer, define it. That's a loaded question, man.
It's a community, it's a passion, it's a hobby, it's anything you necessarily want it to be.
What I want it to be is beer made by, real people.
Handmade, a lot of work, sweat, blood, tears. It's artistic passion. It's exciting to be able to love what you do and make something and share it with people.
Craft beer. Its definition meaning something different to everybody. But as the industry has managed to outsell Budweiser for the first time in history, the country is definitely taking notice of this one small enterprise. But why then has my beautiful home state of Georgia not gotten on board? This is the question that I, Cameron Johnson, filmmaker and beer enthusiast, and my thirsty crew have set out to answer. Our first stop, Slice and Pint in beautiful Decatur, Georgia, where I sat down with Crawford Moran, a man with kind of a rocky history when it comes to Georgia's beer politics.
As I always say, you'd have to be an idiot to open a brewery in Georgia. And, seeing how this is the fourth one that I've opened, maybe that proves something. But, it's just too difficult to really make a decent living. And not that it can't be done, but it's just the challenges are much higher. We have bigger hurdles to overcome in Georgia that other states don't have to deal with. So just to be able to sell a little bit of beer direct is just cash that small businesses need to just, that's the fuel that the engine runs on. And so when you prevent that, which Georgia law does, it just prevents businesses from growing. Even though we've had good growth as far as number of breweries opening Georgia, other states far outpace us. They all kind of looked at Georgia and then said, you gotta be kidding me. And so they looked at states that had better laws, that makes their lives easier. So Georgia's already lost out on hundreds of millions of dollars in investment, which is insane.
But what about those crazy people who do decide to open up breweries in Georgia? I decided to swing by Creature Comforts to chat with CEO Chris Herron.
When I think of craft beer, and we have this tantalizing glass of Tropicali right in front of us, I think of artistry and innovation. Can you tell me how Creature Comforts embodies that ideology?
Yeah, sure. Our whole slogan is Crave Curiosity. We built this brewery. We're a very curious-minded set of people, and we believe that if you're curious about things in the world, that it leads to you uncovering things you're passionate about. And when you do that, you should follow your passions. Following your passions leads to a happier life, and leading to a happier life, it allows you to enjoy the creature comforts of life, which is where this brewery gets its name. And we have been inspired by the innovators, the explorers, those who have gone before us, and we certainly see ourselves as trying to be that for the next generation of breweries and brewers.
For those that don't really know, can you explain some of the regulations and restrictions placed on Georgia breweries that other people around the country don't really have to go through?
Yeah, the gist of it is that we have to sell every drop of beer to one customer, which is our distributor. There are 5 states in the country that's still the way it is, that we can't sell anything directly to a consumer of any kind. So what we're talking about is just the ability to sell some beers to customers who walk in our door and want to explore and taste things, as well as being able to sell a limited quantity back out the door for them to take with them when they go home. And again, that would change the model drastically and allow for a lot more breweries to come in. It would also improve innovation, because a lot of us don't spend a ton of time on getting new beers because we have to brew them so big that the risk versus reward isn't necessarily always the best payoff. And so it kind of stifles innovation and it stifles brewery growth in the state.
Let's say the bill passes,
right?
You can sell directly to consumers. How do you think that would not only affect Creature Comforts, but the craft beer community in Georgia as a whole?
I think the first things you'd see a lot more innovation and styles of beer being able to come out of here. Second thing you'd see us hire more people, because we now have a need for more staff. We'd have a need to operate or really run essentially a tasting room that can actually sell tastings, a need to operate some sort of growler station, as well as someone to manage getting the beer out, as well as someone to manage all of those activities. So we'd have to hire, which is great. It creates jobs. I think if you look across the state, it's been estimated to be another extra $375 million of revenue to the state in the next 5 years, as well as over 1,000 new jobs created. Because what's going to happen is a lot of small breweries are going to open up. A lot of people who don't have the capital to invest in this, but who could open a very small little brewery and get started that way, that's what's going to happen. And those breweries hire 5, 6, 7 people because they still need a tasting room and staff. And so it's this growth in small breweries that's going to be significant. We're currently 47th in the country with breweries per capita. I think we'd see that number drop drastically, and we'd really see Georgia stop being such an importer of craft beer and start becoming more of an exporter. Right now, only about a third of the craft beer drink in this state actually comes from breweries in this state.
So now that we know Georgia brewers are fighting for legislative change, what exactly would that bill entail? That's where State Rep Spencer Fry comes in.
So, for those that might not be as informed about Senate Bill 63, can you kind of explain what it involves, what it entails, and what that would mean for Georgia and the economy as a whole?
Well, that's a lot of questions to answer with one little statement. Senate Bill 63 is a bill that we've been working on for a couple of years now. In essence, it would allow local breweries to be able to sell a certain portion of their product to folks that come in their brewery. Mostly tourists come in and would like to buy some beer from where it's made. And this bill would enable them to sell that. What it would do for the economy, I think it would probably put some jobs in the economy. I think it would give people the opportunity, as far as the tourism and economic development industry is concerned, where if you're a tourist and you're in a strange town, you happen upon one of the 3 breweries we have right here in Athens, and you sample some beer and you're thinking, well, golly, I'd love to have a 6-pack or a growler or whatever you want. You can't buy it now, and this would allow you to sell it to that person. And the issue is, if you're hanging out downtown and you decide you want to buy some of this beer, then you got to find a beer store that sells that beer. Not every store even sells the beer. And it really is just this kind of a tantalizing thing that we've got to fix.
So a lot of people in legislation and of course in the brewing industry here in the state kind of see this as kind of a no-brainer. What do you see as the biggest barrier in getting this piece of legislation passed, and why do you think there has been kind of this pushback to modernizing our laws in Georgia?
I think the modernization of the laws is a great statement because, as you already know, this law was a antiquated law created somewhere in the 1930s, right after Prohibition. I think that a lot of the pushback comes with people just being a little bit scared of change and the effects that change would have. You're also looking at, I would venture to say, a generational situation going on, where as the younger folks move up a little bit, they're a little more willing for change. And with the advent of technology and the technology that makes smaller brew facilities available to different people, which hadn't always existed, I think that's what we're looking at, is people are scared of change, you know?
So how are other southern states managing this craft beer revolution? We decided to hop the border into South Carolina to meet with the head of the South Carolina Craft Brewers Guild, Brooke Bristow.
Allowing breweries to both on-site and off-site for their sales, we've seen just tremendous growth, both in revenues on both sides of the sale aisle. We've also seen a massive increase in the number of jobs and the number of breweries opening. I mean, since 2013, where we allowed on-site sales, we have a 150% increase in breweries opening. We have an increase in about $13.7 million in economic impact revenue. But to allow off-site, it's almost unfathomable to me that a state or a legislature would not be for more revenue for the state and more jobs for its citizens. It's almost crazy to me to think that.
A trip to South Carolina isn't complete without taking in the rich culture and history of Charleston. So, that's what we did. While traversing the remnants of the antebellum South, we stumbled upon a tiny brewery by the name of Tradesman that has definitely benefited from South Carolina's recent law changes.
If you couldn't sell directly to consumers, could you be in business?
Man, in looking at, you know, what the things that make our little brewery unique and really fun. I mean, we're a small shop. It's a really, we do small batch brews. It's a boutique little environment, and you know, for all the uniqueness that we have, if we didn't have the ability to sell beer directly over our bar or have the ability to sell beer to consumers to take home to enjoy, at this scale, this business model couldn't exist.
So we see what South Carolina has done to facilitate the craft beer craze. But what about a state that has been the model for encouraging beer growth? That's what led us to North Carolina and the beautiful city of Asheville, also known as Beer City, USA. With almost more breweries in one city than the entire state of Georgia combined, it was hard to decide where to start. So, how about we start with the first? That's how we landed at Highland Brewing Company, where craft beer pioneer Leah Ashburn explained her take on Asheville's beer culture.
So North Carolina, this is pretty much like Valhalla for us coming from Georgia and having such harsh brewery laws and brewery restrictions. Why do you think the state is so receptive to brewers and breweries and the brewing culture as a whole?
I think that part of it was great timing. 21 years ago when we started was a challenging time. It was not easy in those first several years. You know, we were not a profitable business for quite a while. So there's a lot to figure out. But I think what happened that was critical is that my father and our team positioned Highland as a good company to have as a neighbor, as a good part of the community, as a contributor. And so it became an accepted norm for people to think, okay, breweries are good neighbors. So they welcomed more of them.
Transitioning from one of the oldest breweries in Asheville to one of the newest, we met with Tim Weber of Twin Leaf Brewery to discuss the positive impact craft beer has had on the city.
We're in Asheville. It's the mecca for craft beer right now. Just tell me how beer tourism has kind of transformed this area around here.
Oh my gosh, this area down here, it's, we call it the South Slope. Now there's 7 breweries within a block of each other. A couple years ago, this was an area you didn't want to be at, even during the day. It was considered a drug district, a red light district. Now, we were one of, Green Man's been down here for a few years. Now that we open, it's kind of brought the whole thing together. So we've attached down to here, and all of a sudden we're having millions of people come in to go try different beers and different breweries and you know, try different things. So it's been amazing.
And it's just pumping money into the economy around here.
Oh my God, yeah, there's all kinds of like little bits, other big businesses too that have come from all of us breweries being here. So we have one of the first floor maltsters in the country, Riverbend Malt, they're here. We have a lot of tour groups that come through. There's bicycle groups. The local economy as far as restaurants have been growing and growing, and then people go to the Blue Ridge Mountains and they get to see the beautiful sights and see why we're all here in the first place. So it's been great.
Craft beer to me is just a means of expression for a brewer. The same way musicians use music to express how they feel and what they see the world as.
The culture and community in craft beer is one of family, friendship, and fellowship.
Having the decisions, the vision, the values, the mission, having those things come from people who are involved in the brewing operations day to day.
It's a cultural movement for better beer.
I think American craft brewers are the best on the planet, so cheers to craft beer.
Craft beer. Its definition meaning something different to everybody. But in a time of changing taste and economic opportunity, Georgia, we need to get with the program. For in this convoluted land of bureaucracy, we are one nation under hops.
Got out of bed, not much is going through my head. Only thought was how you looked last night. We with your beautiful eyes and your auburn hair.